Hello, my name is Mary Coupland. Welcome to another episode of The Road Ahead. Through a series of guests, we are going to help you navigate your own road ahead as you age. Because let's face it, nobody wants to find themselves in a crisis mode simply because they didn't have access to information. We will help you on your journey and that of your aging parents. As the publisher of Compass and Clock, we are going to help you achieve your best future. Today I have a wonderful, experienced professional guest with me. Her name is Paula Weissinger, and she has been in the insurance industry for over 20 years, all with State Farm. 12 of those years, she was at the corporate office, deep in the trenches. Katrina, 9/11, hurricanes, earthquakes, you name it. So she's definitely the go-to gal when you've got questions about insurance. Her office is located on Bainbridge Island, and she serves the Kitsap Peninsula. She has an MBA, and she has multiple certifications. I can't explain what they all are, but I'll let her explain that to you. Paula, welcome to The Road Ahead.
Good morning, Mary. Happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
I'm so delighted that you're with us today. Can you tell us what your two certifications are? One is a CLU, I believe.
Absolutely. I have a certification in life underwriting, and I also have a certification called CPCU in property casualty underwriting.
Well, that leads us into today's topic, which is the umbrella policy and the protection of assets. So Paula, why don't we kick this off with explaining to our viewers and myself, what's an umbrella policy? Because I'm guessing it has nothing to do with the weather.
No, it doesn't. Even though you could use an umbrella in Washington once in a while. But why don't I do this by explaining the way I do it when customers come into my office.
Okay.
An umbrella policy is a great policy to have for asset protection. It's one of our most inexpensive policies at State Farm. And what it does is I explain to people, here's a car. And so you have your car insurance protecting your car. And let's say that you head-on collide with a car on the other side of the road. So you are at fault for this accident. And all four people are injured and the car is totaled. Your insurance policy may have limits like $250,000, $500,000, $100,000. What do those numbers mean, right? You come into my office to find that out. $250,000, the first number is the per person liability limit, and $500,000 is the aggregate limit for the accident. The last number is the property damage to cover the cars involved.
Okay.
Now, if you only have a $500,000 aggregate limit, and let's say that you have assets of more than $500,000, meaning your home, your car, your savings accounts, your investments, that type of thing, in the state of Washington, you can be sued for more than your home and your cars and different amounts in different accounts. So you have to make sure that you have an amount on your umbrella policy that will limit that will equal the limits of your assets that you have. So that in the event that you caused a detrimental accident that possibly could have caused the life or the disability of somebody else, that you have adequate protection to protect your assets.
So when on this one, let me go back one second. So 250 in this example that we're doing here, 250,000 coverage per person, but 500,000 aggregate. So if there's four people in the car, you can only cover two?
Right, and so those are the liability limits in your car insurance. But the reason that we have umbrella policies is because most people want to make sure that they can go above and beyond that $500,000, because as you just mentioned, that $250,000 per person would get used
cover two people.
in the two people. So the umbrella policy with State Farm is sold in $1 million increments. It goes above the auto, the home. You have a liability limit on your home as well, so that $1 million would go over top of that limit too. If you own a boat, there would be a certain type of liability limit you'd have on a boat. And it also covers you and your family all around the world for anything that you might be liable for.
Okay. And this umbrella policy scenario that we're talking about, this type of insurance, I know you're with State Farm. Do other insurance agencies have umbrella policies, but depending on who's working with which agency, they would talk about umbrella policies that they carry and use to cover people, correct?
So since I'm not a broker, I just work for State Farm. I can't speak to other companies. My only advice would be if you have an umbrella policy, make sure that you're aware of whether or not the attorney coverage is included in the liability limit or if it is something that is separate. I know at State Farm, our attorney coverage is free. So we have attorneys on retainer all over the country. So if something happens, we're able to represent you. And that is in addition to the liability limits. The best thing about the umbrella policies is it acts as an umbrella over all of your other assets, your home, your cars, your boat, whatever else it is you have, your rental dwellings, whatever. And it is additional liability to help protect your assets. And they're very inexpensive policies. I highly recommend them. And I use the terms in my office, it's like the fries in a Happy Meal. It just kind of should come with.
They come together. Mm-hmm. So the umbrella policy is the asset protection. That's how the asset protection comes into this insurance scenario. So do you want to give us an example of an umbrella policy so that, but let's just use a scenario with, a car accident and
Sure.
And I know when you explained it to me at one point, there's a difference where if there's an unfortunate death versus an unfortunate disability, and a disability could cost more because it's ongoing that you're paying therefore for somebody's, for the rest of their life.
Yeah, so some of the things that you need to think about is that accidents are called accidents for a reason, Mary. I know a lot of people think, well, I'm a good driver, that's not going to happen to me, or I'm healthy, or whatever. I'm in the what if business, and the what if happens on a daily basis. And fortunately, it doesn't happen to all of us at the same time, but it does happen. And so we are trying to help people think about the what if. So what if your dog bites somebody? What if they do that at your house? What if they do that around town? The liability policy covers dog bites. That's also something that would go over and above your homeowner's insurance. What if this car that you bumped into on 305 or whatever hits 4 cars and causes a 4-car accident? And what if everybody walks away but the third car? And the person in the third car might have been 60, 65 years old and needed to go to intensive care for a while. What if those things happened? Do you have enough coverage? Those are the types of things in reality that I deal with every day. And I'd rather have these conversations with people when they don't need the policy than when they're sitting in my office because something just happened and they're wondering if they have enough coverage.
That's a scary scenario. When you were talking about what if your dog bites somebody, I had been talking to another insurance person at a networking meeting I was at one point, and they were educating me on you're a senior and you live in an assisted living community, and lots of beautiful communities allow folks to have pets. And folks should have insurance policies like renters policies when they're living in assisted living communities. So how would this umbrella policy pertain to a senior then if they're living in an independent or an assisted living community?
Well, that's a great question, Mary. So we do have renters insurance. Seniors that are living in assisted communities do need renters insurance. And our renters insurance at State Farm, I can only speak to that, does have a $100,000 liability limit included in the policy. It's one of our least expensive policies. It has great coverage. The umbrella policy would be put over that to increase that $100,000 limit so that they'd have, the umbrella policies are sold in $1 million increments. So the least amount you can get is $1 million.
Okay.
And then so on. They go up to $25 million. So the $100,000 in the renter's policy would just be added. It would be $1,100,000.
Okay.
Yes.
Got it. And you can live in an assisted living community or an independent community and still have family to protect and still have, because you're trying maybe to protect your legacy.
That's correct.
Because you want to pass, inheritance on to your children.
That's correct.
So educate our viewers as far as umbrella policies go and asset protection. It changes, again, depending on your age, would determine on how you're going to set this up, correct?
Well, and one of the biggest things the peninsula is known for is we're run by a lot of small businesses on the peninsula and on the island specifically. Making sure that your insurance agent is aware of the division of your assets between your business and your personal, those need to be protected differently. The personal liability umbrella policy protects your personal assets. The commercial liability umbrella policy protects your business assets. So having a sit-down, face-to-face discussion with your insurance agent, whoever it might be, is always a good idea so that they can see and identify and can sit down and do a needs analysis and identify any gaps in your coverage.
Wow. So I didn't even know that there was a separate personal and business umbrella policies. When we were doing the scenario, I was just thinking personal. So those same types of scenarios can happen if I'm driving in my car for business.
That's correct.
On a business trip, and therefore it would kick in under my commercial policy, I'm assuming.
And if somebody falls, slips, or trips at your place of business, and that would be a business liability. So those are just different things. Talking to your insurance agent, they should be going through what if scenarios in your personal life, and then what if scenarios to protect your business assets as well, because they are separate.
Okay. So we're going to need to wrap this up. So what is one tip you would like to give the viewers as it pertains to, for instance, how often, as it pertains to this topic of discussion we were having today with umbrella policies and asset protection, how often should they check in with their insurance partner, agent, for these what-if scenarios? How often should they get things relooked at?
Well, we recommend that you visit with your insurance agent every 2 to 3 years, minimal. And if you're doing something unique and different, having a baby, adding onto your house, something that's just different, contact your insurance agent ahead of time. I actually, in my office, hire somebody to specifically call all of my customers on a regular basis to make sure that we're seeing everybody every 2 to 3 years, just to invite you in to do a thorough needs analysis and make sure that there are no gaps in coverage.
Thank you, Paula. I do remember speaking with a friend, and she, if the husband is the one taking care of this and the wife isn't, or whatever the case may be, it probably is a good idea that in the marriage, both partners are aware of what they have.
Correct.
Know what you have would be my parting words. Make sure you understand the policies that you have, and if you're a little bit unclear, bring them to a professional such as Paula or whoever you may be working with so that they can review them on a regular basis.
And I might add, know what you have before you need it. It's always easier to review your policies when you don't need it than to review them after you've had a catastrophe.
Good final tip. Paula, thank you so much for joining us today on The Road Ahead. And to all of you, we look forward to seeing you again at our next episode. Have a great day.